we have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Okay, that's Joe Biden. I just could not resist opening up this video with that clip. I know, it's been fact-checked. He probably didn't mean that, on and on, but you heard it there with your own ears, I hope. So, lots of claims about voter fraud, election fraud, stealing the election, going around. There actually is a lot of evidence, although most people would not be aware of that. If all your sources of news is the mainstream media and even social media, probably underway right now, the biggest coordinated censorship, social media censorship campaign the world has ever seen. And, you know, if you just rely on the social media and the corporate media, they're really one and the same at this point. But if you rely on, Facebook, YouTube, really especially Facebook and Twitter, have been censoring pretty much absolutely everything with any evidence of any election fraud whatsoever. And then the mainstream media, of course, is saying that there is no election fraud. So if that's where you get your news, it actually looks like that. But I'm here to tell you, I've been doing some digging, and I've made an in-depth post. I'll show some a little bit from my post here, but I've done some research, and there actually is quite a bit of evidence of election fraud, believe it or not. So we're going to get into that today. And the president on Thursday, President Trump, he made some remarks basically saying that there was wide-scale fraud and that the election was stolen from him. And if any of you of my followers should know by now, I'm not a Trump supporter, so I just want to get that out of the way before we get in here. That does not mean that there is not election fraud. And by pointing it out does not make me a Trump supporter. So just that little disclaimer, and now let's get into the propaganda. This is how they respond to the president's claims that there is election fraud. This is the New York Times. In torrent of falsehoods, Trump claims election is being stolen. Torrent of falsehoods. So we'll get into that. We'll see if it's really a torrent of falsehoods here. But this is very noteworthy. They're censoring the President of the United States of America now. They're outright censoring. They cut his feed. They cut a live statement so that the American people could not hear what the leader of the so-called free world had to say. True or false, I think most people probably would have liked to hear that, But it says right here, most television networks cut away from the statement President Trump gave Thursday night from the White House briefing room on the grounds that what he was saying was not true. So now not only social media, but the mainstream media, they're not going to allow the President of the United States of America to say whatever he wants if they deem that it's not true. They're not going to, debunk it, fact check it. That's old school. Now they just cut the feed. This is the censorship that's underway right now. So that's just a little bit absurd for a so-called free country. Hopefully it's becoming apparent between the whole pandemic and now crackdowns and now that this is not a free country. In any event, let's see what they say here, and then we're gonna see how absolutely absurd their claims really are. Even for President Trump, it was an imagined version of reality, one in which he was not losing, but the victim of a wide-ranging conspiracy stretching across the country in multiple cities, counties, and states, involving untold numbers of people, all somehow collaborating to steal the election in ways he could not actually explain. Now, as if they put it in this terms as if this is not even possible. It would be so hard to get untold numbers of people to somehow collaborate to steal an election when, well, as we heard, his opponent has, whether it was a slip of the tongue or not, he's created an elaborate voter fraud organization. So just keep that in mind. Probably a slip of the tongue. But, by the way, they have now called the election. The AP, Associated Press, has called the election for Joe Biden. Just interesting news. We've reached that point now. Kind of figured that would happen. But anyway, in ways, it says here, in ways he could not actually explain. So, of stealing the election. I'm not going to play the whole clip. It's long, maybe 15 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole speech, Trump's speech. But we're going to get into pretty much every claim that Trump made. We're going to get into and show evidence backing it up. So we'll pretty much get to see what Trump was saying when we look at the evidence here. So he laid it out very calmly, very articulately. I actually thought he was calmer than he often is. He sounded very sane. Sometimes he sounds insane. He actually sounded sane on Thursday night. He sounded like, and he continued to say he had evidence. Evidence that's being censored, of course, from Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, yours truly, Silicon Valley, corporate media. Never mind that Mr. Trump presented not a shred of evidence during his first public appearance since late on election night, or that few senior Republican office holders endorsed his false claims of far-reaching fraud. Okay, again, false claims. So, presented not a shred of evidence, they say. Well, we're going to look at some evidence here, just 1 minute. And, he might not have presented it in front of the cameras. Not that it would matter. People wouldn't have got to see it. All the mainstream media outlets cut the feed. But nonetheless, he actually had presented some of this evidence on his Twitter feed. It was censored. He presented some of it in YouTube videos and whatnot. But mainly on Twitter, and it was censored. So it's not like he hasn't tried to present the evidence. Many other people have tried to present the evidence on Twitter. It has not been allowed to be viewed. So let's see how, here we're at the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos owns this piece. One of the richest man in the world, billionaire. He owns the Washington Post. So this is what they say. Trump as lead narrows in counts in Pennsylvania, Georgia. So those are two of the states where Trump was ahead. Two of the important battleground states, along with a few others that we'll also get into. Trump was ahead by quite a large margin. And then at the very end, in the last few percents of the votes, Biden just, continues to narrow in. And now he's actually squeaked ahead on both of them. But it says he repeats baseless claims of fraud. Baseless. We're going to find out this is not true. They're not baseless claims. They only appear to be baseless claims because these groups of people like Jeff Bezos and the censors of our democracy are censoring all of the evidence that show that this is actually not baseless. So let's hear what this lady has to say, Washington Post.
Trump and his campaign and legal team and supporters are working really hard in all four of those states to suggest that there is fraud and that the only reason that the votes are close in those four states is because election officials and Democrats are putting in ballots that are illegal into the hopper. And it's really important to say there is absolutely no evidence that this is the case.
It's really important to say there is absolutely no evidence that this is the case. You couldn't get more clear than that. Absolutely no evidence. Zero. Zilch. There's no other way to read this. So, let's, then this is another video, same page here. I just took a screenshot of a same Washington Post again. And then they add on, when they go through his clips here, his speech, they go through bit by bit, and they show, they debunk it. And this is one of their debunking points. Plus, they say, voter fraud is extremely rare in the United States. Extremely rare. So, there's no evidence that there's any fraud, that there's any, illegal ballots putting ballots that are illegal. There's no evidence that this is the case. And voter fraud is extremely rare. So both of those claims are just absolutely not true. I mean, look at this. Greg Abbott, Texas. I believe he's the governor of Texas, but a Texas official. Election fraud is real. Yeah, they just convicted someone of election fraud. 134 felony counts that involved election fraud. So, I mean, it's extremely rare. Well, how rare is it really? So, and then let's go down here. This is comical. It really is. And, okay, it's Washington Post, CNN, the whole media establishment, they're trying to convince us right now that there's basically no such thing as voter fraud in America. It's so rare, it can't happen. It's a conspiracy that Trump would actually dare to say something so absurd. But you gotta remember, those are the same media outlets. Russia collusion, Russiagate, for 4 years. Those establishment media peoples who spent the last 4 years convinced and attempting to convince you that there was election interference by Russia are now saying there's no way the election could be rigged. So, I mean, makes perfect sense to me. I mean, for 4 years, Russia collusion, definitely Russia interfered with the election. Russia got Trump elected. It was a fraudulent election. And now, it can't be rigged because election fraud doesn't happen in this country. Hopefully, a lot of Americans are beginning to see just how absolutely ridiculous this establishment media really is becoming. And as to election fraud in this country, here is a whistleblower. Forget his name, but it'll all be linked in my post here. All the links. I can just go up here and get his name. Clint Curtis. He's testifying in this clip before a congressional committee in Ohio that Congressman Tom Feeney hired him to build a software package that would rig an election. Let's hear for ourselves.
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used to secretly fix elections?
Yes,
How do you know that to be the case?
because in October of 2000, I wrote a prototype for President Congressman Tom Feeney at the company I worked for in Oviedo, Florida, that did just that.
And when you say did just that, it would rig an election?
It would flip the vote 51-49 to whoever you wanted it to go to and whichever race you wanted to win.
And would that program that you designed be something that elections officials that might be on county boards of elections could detect?
They'd never see it.
Mr. Would you answer that question once again?
They would never see it.
So how would such a program, a secret program that fixes the election, how could it be detected?
You would have to view it either in the source code, or you'd have to have a receipt and then count the hard paper against the actual vote total. Other than that, you won't see it.
All right, Mr. Curtis, if you had been asked, you or others with your professional expertise had been asked to design a protective program that would protect the Ohio elections from against such software to fix the election, could you have done so?
If we've been asked to make a program that can fix the election, sure, anybody can do it.
No, could you have designed a program or a procedure or a protocol that would have protected Ohio against this kind of rigging?
No, you have to look at the source code. You have to get probably programmers from both or all parties to look at the source code and determine if there's anything in there that shouldn't be there. I mean, it's a simple program. You're adding 1 to a person's total. It's 100 lines of code tops.
All right, are you aware of whether there was any protective action in Ohio against this kind of vote rigging through software?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You were not asked to assist in the development of any protective system, is that correct?
No, I was not.
In Europe, have you reviewed at all the election results in Ohio?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Given the availability of such vote rigging software and the testimony that has been given under oath of statistical anomalies and gross differences between exit polling data and the actual tabulated results. Do you have an opinion whether or not the Ohio election, presidential election, was hacked?
Yes, I would say it was. I mean, if you have exit polling data that is significantly off from the vote, then it's probably hacked.
And your testimony is under oath?
Yes, sir.
And the testimony you've given is true?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's that. He designed software that could flip the vote 51 to 49, any candidate that would be chosen by whoever is using this software, undetectable to the election counters, election officials. Very disturbing. The 2000, it was likely that this is how Bush won the election, with software that was designed by this man and men like him. So with that in mind, let us take a look at, we got a lot to get through. I'm trying to get through it as quick as I can here. Now this is the good stuff. So introduction out of the way, let's just dive in to the evidence of election fraud. So remember what he said about all what we just heard, and now we have this exact scenario playing out right now, 2020 elections in Michigan, one of the key states that was flipped to Biden late in the game. We have software used to tabulate the votes in at least one county. It sent 6,000 Trump votes to Biden. Yeah, it counted 6,000 Trump votes. 6,000 people that voted for Trump. The machines gave those votes to Biden. Now, in this case, the election official found the error. They say it's an error, but we have to wonder, is it an error? Is it a glitch? Or is it actually a feature that they had to pretend was an error when it got found out? We have to ask these questions when we know that there are software designers in the past that have been hired to manufacture this stuff for the specific purpose of rigging elections. We really have to keep that in mind. So let's hear an explanation of this.
If all this wasn't enough, in Antrim County, ballots were counted for Democrats that were meant for Republicans, causing a 6,000 vote swing against our candidates. The county clerk came forward and said, tabulating software glitched and caused a miscalculation of the votes. Since then, we have now discovered that 47 counties use this same software in the same capacity.
47 other counties. Have they found out? Have they done detailed counts, manual counts in those 47 counties to find out if other such errors? I mean, imagine if a couple thousand, 6,000 votes in each one of these counties was flipped from Trump to Biden. In Michigan, a very close state. Trump was leading for the majority of the counting, but near the end, in the last about between 90, I think it was around 94% to the 99% range is when Biden overtook Trump. Very close. Definitely something that is a red flag, and definitely, whether it's a glitch or intentional, it shows us that elections are error prone. The results we are being given are probably not accurate. There's a high likelihood of that. So we've got another interesting thing. Not only 47 counties was this software used in Michigan, the software's name is Dominion, and I'm getting this information here off of a video from The Outer Light. I'll have a link for that too in the description. This video, yes, will be linked in the description along with my blog post and all the other sources here. But Ed from The Outer Light, he is featuring this tweet, who did the research here on Dominion. It's the name of the software that had the glitch. And by the way, it wasn't just a glitch in that one count. It actually flipped a race to a Democrat. and they found that it was I believe a county commissioner, Democrat, won the race, but only because of this Dominion software. So it, on at least 2 occasions in Michigan alone, it's been found to have this error. And when they found the error with the county commissioner and redid the counts, the Republican actually won. So it actually cost someone a race, this software glitch. So we know for a fact that it's glitched out twice, and we know it's functioning in 47 counties in Michigan, and this Dominion is also used in 30 states, including Nevada, Arizona, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Every single major swing state, as he says. Every single one. So what are the chances of that? Just another red flag. This is not, this right here is not proof of anything, except that we have a verifiably glitchy software that seems to be glitching at least on several occasions, and in each glitch, every glitch that's been found, it's giving Republican votes to Democrats. Almost kind of a little bit like the whistleblower testified before Congress, how it could flip votes from Democrat to Republican to make it add up a 51-49 or whatever, 52-48, whatever they would program it to do. So that's very interesting. We'll come back to this page in a minute, but let's go back here, and off the Ron Paul Liberty Report, they have actually quite a bit of information that's been highly suppressed. So let's listen here to Daniel McAdams. He'll point out a few things that I found are worth covering.
As a former election observer, I can raise some huge red flags about what's happening. But here's the latest, and this isn't my idea. Someone else wrote this, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and it should cause us to scratch our heads. Florida managed to count 10.5 million votes within 24 hours. Georgia can't even count 4.8 million, less than half of that in 2 days. Why is that? And the other thing that's very important, I think, is every state that is registering a delay, every state that stopped counting, every state that refuses to report the results, in every one of those states, Biden has gained significant numbers of votes. Maybe that is just a pure coincidence, but there's certainly some red flags. If I saw that anywhere else, I would raise some red flags.
Again, that on its own is not proof, but we've got more.
First off, and this is Alex Berenson, former New York Times reporter, he just tweeted out, according to the Wisconsin Election Commission, there were 3,684,726 registered voters as of November 1st. 450,000 more than that number voted. So that is a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, so we're starting to get into the stuff where that's solid evidence of voter fraud. You cannot have more people voting than there are voters. That's a statistical, that's not an anomaly, that's a straight up impossibility. The only way to get that kind of number would be to have, well, more ballots cast than there are voters, which means there's definitely fraud. So here, let's go back to Ed's video here, another timestamp I saved here. It's not just in one state where this is taking place. We also have this in Nevada. 1,277,000 registered voters, 1,593,000 projected votes, based on the counted and percentages. 125% voter turnout, and on down the line. Pennsylvania, Minnesota, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia. All of the major states that are the keys in deciding this election, which has now been called for Joe Biden, despite all of this evidence and despite the fact that there are going to be recounts, and it's definitely not known. There's still votes coming in, which, as Daniel McAdams said, is strange enough. How can these states be taking 4 or 5 days and they still are not not even close to finished, and Florida got it done in one day. Some of these other states got it done in one day, and we've had past elections where we don't have these issues. But anyway, you in all of these states except for Georgia, you've got the highest turnouts ever. More than 100%. I mean, this is better than the communist countries do. This 96, that's unreal. You don't get 96% turnouts even when you have mandatory voting in Europe. Mandatory voting, compulsory voting, you still only get 80 to maybe 90%. But over 100, that's better than communist China can get. This is just, I mean, if this is not indicative of fraud, I don't know what is, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. So let's come back here and, oh yes, let's see. This is a big one. This is a really big one. A lot of stuff, you know, Donald Trump censored a lot, and then they put this message, some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed, so that people have to first see that before they click on it, and different ways of censoring. So we've got that. I'm not going to be able to cover everything that I covered in this post. There's just too much to get to. But this is the big one. So right here, I don't know if you can see this, but like the link will be in the description below, so you'll be able to see it for yourself. But I can see it, show it right here. Okay, here's the zoomed one. So this is Michigan. On the left here, we've got an estimated 77 to 90% in. We have Donald Trump at 2.2 million, Joe Biden at 1.992 million, and then the third-party candidates at their numbers, 49,000 for Libertarian Joe Jorgensen, 16 and 6 for the other two. And then here we go. Now it goes from 77 to 79 or 90 to 93. So approximately 2 to 3 more percent. So we got about 3% more voting in here. And what do you know? Donald J. Trump, 2.2 million. Even the 902,000, 0. He got no votes in this 3% that were counted. And Joe Biden, he went from 1.992 to 2.130. He jumped from 46.7 to 48.4% in this 3% of votes being counted, this vote dump here. So, and then the most interesting thing, probably the most interesting thing, is we've got, Joe Jorgensen, 49,198, 49,198. So she didn't get any votes either. Nor did Howie Hawkins or Don Blankenship for the Green Party, and I don't know the third party. I'm honestly haven't really paid much attention to these elections. They're a joke. But now that we've got this fraud, I am becoming interested, because this is unprecedented amount of censorship and evidence of fraud. So how do you get all these votes and they all go to Joe Biden? That's a statistical anomaly, to say the least. So I am going to play a clip from the Ron Paul Liberty Report on that and related things, but I think, yes, here I've got a very interesting article called "Press Prostitutes Make Fools of Themselves Trying to Cover Up Vote Fraud for Democrats." So this is by Paul Craig Roberts. He is the farthest thing from a Republican you could find, kind of like myself. He's very anti-neocon. So he's spoken out against Bush administrations, also against Obama. Very anti-establishment, anti-war, and anti-right-wing. So definitely not a Trump apologist. This is what he has to say about the evidence we just looked at. What an honest person would probably call a vote dump of Biden, fraudulent Biden votes. That's sure what it looks like. So here, the BBC claims this was a data entry error that was corrected. the data entry error was not corrected, if it was, until it became an issue. How does the BBC know that the sudden jump in votes for Biden wasn't fraud that, when exposed, was explained away by crooked officials as a data entry error? That's a very good question. How do they know that? Well, the BBC doesn't know that. They're just spitting out the narrative that they've been told to spit out, just like all of the other big corporate establishment media outlets. Note also that the exact same thing occurred in neighboring Wisconsin at about the same time. What are the chances of that? So we had two simultaneous data entry errors in two critical contested states that wiped out Trump's lead. How likely is that? Yeah, pretty statistically unlikely, I'd say. Note also that correcting the data entry error did not result in the reappearance of Trump's lead. It sure didn't. So how was the error corrected? And one might also add, and what exactly was the error? Was the error all the Biden votes? Because if it was, he's completely correct. Or was it maybe that they hadn't counted the Biden votes, which doesn't make any sense at all, in which case there's still, that's a huge error. They just lost, 200,000, 138,000 Biden votes they just lost? And then, they just suddenly found them all together all at once? Even if you would to believe that, that shows how easily they can just lose 130,000 votes. They just lose them, and we're going to find out that they actually do just lose Trump votes. It's pretty ridiculous. So he goes on to say, it shows how utterly stupid the prostitutes are, that they report that a data entry error that erased Trump's lead was corrected, but the lead remained erased. Yeah, good point. And why he also asked, does a British news service have a fact-check team to protect an American political party? Is the campaign against Red State America organized globally? One does wonder, especially coming off of the back of a global pandemic, scamdemic. It's just, I hope that more of the average American is beginning to see through the absurdity of these establishment narratives, because that's what they are. They are absolutely absurd. So, like he said, this also happened in Wisconsin. I believe it didn't even just happen in those two states. It happened in other of the key swing battleground states. So let's kick it back here to Daniel McAdams on the Liberty Report for a little bit more coverage on this highly important, what I would say is proof, but at the very least, solid evidence of definitely voter fraud going on. Like, no doubt whatsoever.
That seems strange. We don't know the answer. It seems very strange. President Trump has retweeted this map himself with the question mark about how is this possible. Let's look at the next one, because this happened elsewhere. This is that jump in Michigan when all of a sudden 130,000 votes, all of them went to Biden. Let's look at the next one. And here's next door in Wisconsin.
There's the Wisconsin.
You see that same jump. Here is Trump in the lead by a comfortable margin. You can see that red line, comfortable margin, and all of a sudden over 100,000 votes are dropped, all for Biden. It definitely raises
every single one. What are the chances?
Really quickly. I think we have one more. The same thing happened in Georgia. All of a sudden, a huge bump. Now, President Trump right now is maintaining a slight lead there, but the question is, where's the next big box of votes going to come from?
Good question.
Suspicious. We don't know.
And to expect an answer for this in a short period of time, this is going to be a can of worms for sure. And the other thing that's going on, it's going to end up in court. It's going to end up, as far as I'm concerned, with the Supreme Court.
So that's the other thing. I totally agree with Ron Paul there, and many other independent analysts and journalists and researchers. This is not clear-cut like the media is calling it, the Associated Press calling it for Joe Biden now. I don't even know which of the states. I think he probably got Nevada, which would have put him right at 270. And maybe maybe they've called him for Pennsylvania, giving him a good solid lead. Maybe even Georgia, the last one they showed there, he surpassed him by just a few thousand, I believe. A few hundred, but it might have gone up to a few thousand. Personally, I watched Georgia. Georgia was at 99% of the votes in for, I think, close to 2 solid days. And the votes just kept coming in, and it stayed at 99%. And I was waiting for, when is this going to get to 100%? And almost all of those, it was probably the trend that they just showed, but I was just watching it. The majority of all those votes coming in were all Biden. And I just wondered, how many thousands of Biden votes are they going to get before they finally inched up from 99 to 100%? And last I checked, it was still going, and it was still at 99%. It's like that endless, never-ending 1% that just goes on and on forever. So that was just a little anomaly I personally witnessed. I didn't do too much, but I was kind of watching the graphs a little bit throughout the days following the selection, because that's what it's a selection, it's not an election. So they're calling it for Joe Biden, but it's not over. It doesn't matter if they call it. It's all about creating this confusion, this chaos, getting the people to not know what's going on. And now you've got a whole bunch of never Trumpers, Trump haters, I guess, because it's not about Biden. It's whether you're pro or against Trump. This has nothing to do with Biden. No one's voting for Biden. Biden's a joke. Biden's the absolute most unelectable candidate probably in American history. I mean, he's literally losing his mind, and I'm not going to get into that here. I've got another post on that, but lots of videos out there just showing everyone knows, Creepy Joe, how this man is getting more votes than Obama in a landslide should make one wonder, should make one ask some questions. But this is going to drag out, probably going to go to the Supreme Court. Like Ron Paul said, it's not over. Georgia has already declared they're definitely having a recount. Trump has pushed for a recount in Michigan. There will certainly be recounts in several states. So it's not over. The media wants people to believe it's over. And then, of course, if for some reason it does switch back to Trump somehow, all those never Trumpers are just going to be up in arms. They're going to be like, no, fraud. And so then it'll be each side. It doesn't matter. Whoever wins, the other side is going to say that it's, criminal or fraudulent. And I think they set it up that way. I think this is really all just a big show, but clearly there is shenanigans going on here. So let's look at a few more of these evidences of what would appear to be a coordinated attempt to, at the very least, make it look like they're trying to steal the election. And by they, I mean the Biden campaign, the establishment.
This is yesterday. 2 more batches of Pennsylvania votes were reported. They found 2 more batches of votes. 23,277 votes in Philadelphia, all for Biden. 5,300 votes in Luzerne County, nearly 4,000 of which were for Biden. How is it possible that you simply have a few boxes of ballots and they are 100% for one candidate? I don't see how that's possible.
Well, I actually do see how that's possible. Here's one possibility right here. We've got, are the dead coming back to life to vote again in Michigan? This is more than a bit concerning. So this actually happened in Michigan. Overnight, people began pointing out that the dead appeared to have voted in Michigan. We've already brought, blah, blah, blah. Overnight, people began pointing out something pretty strange. The dead do indeed appear to have come back to life to vote. Yes, 118-year-old William Bradley from Detroit, he voted absentee, according to the Secretary of State's website. How is that possible? One also has to wonder, how did he apply for the absentee ballot? We've also got, it wasn't just William Bradley, who died in June 1984. There's also 120-year-old June Aiken and 119-year-old Donna Bridges. Anyway, they say, just for record, the oldest person in the U.S. is Sarah Nowes, who's 119 years old. People also referenced multiple other names that also appeared to show the same kind of thing. So this wasn't isolated. This was a fairly widespread occurrence, at least in Michigan. So that's one way that we could get, boxes of ballots that all went to Biden. Because if you have dead people voting, which obviously is impossible, what you've really got on your hands, if this is actually happening, which the data is showing that it's happening. So the only way this can feasibly be happening, short of a miracle where these people actually rose from the dead twice, first to request the ballots and second to cast them, mail them, we've got on our hands somebody who is using their names to cast Biden ballots, stuff them in boxes, and deliver them. Okay, so that's just one way that could play out. Let's, I think we're going to get a little bit more. Yeah, we've got some more stuff from Daniel McAdams.
This is the Attorney General of the state, the person in charge of the elections. Here's what he said a couple of days before the election. If all the votes are added up in Pennsylvania, Trump is going to lose. How would he know that before the election even took place? That's a big question.
He might have been the protector of those ballots that was.
But you want him in charge of things.
Yeah.
He's already predicted.
He sure may have been the protector of those boxes of ballots, which may appear to have included many, many dead people. So it's really a good question, though. It really is. How does an official know, or how are they so certain before? This is in Pennsylvania, another swing state. How is he so sure that Trump is going to lose? But only if all the ballots are counted. All the ballots. Not necessarily all the legal ballots, I would presume, based on how things look to be going.
You want him in charge of things.
Yeah.
He's already predicted that Trump will lose. I mean, talk about taking extraordinary measures. Let's look at this next clip if we can. Detroit, absentee ballot counting chaos as workers block the windows and bar observers. Let's do the next one. This is also Detroit. Same story. Windows covered at ballot counting center. Why do they need to cover the windows if all they're doing is sitting there counting the votes?
So that's a really, really good question there. And, yeah, just really questions that the mainstream media won't answer, won't address. Let me see, there may have been one. No, I'm good on those, so I can get rid of that page now. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and play this last clip, and I've got another clip, and another clip, several more clips. Lots of this anomalies going on this week. It's a crazy week.
This is insane. North Carolina won't update its total vote count until November 12th. The state is crucial for President Trump's path to victory. Here are the numbers. Trump holding on as of yesterday to a narrow lead, and they just simply stop updating the count. It's unheard of. Nobody there can count? It's insane. Let's look at the next one. I'm just going to do this one and I think one after it. This is from Kimberly Strassel. This is actually, you were correct, Dr. Paul. I was wrong. Wisconsin has 3.6 million active registered voters. They counted 3.288 million votes. That's a bit unbelievable. 89% turnout in Wisconsin. And she says, I'm legitimately confused by this. I checked, and the top number is indeed Wisconsin's registered number as of November 1st. The bottom is approximately what's been counted. This is a not feasible 89% turnout. That is pretty insane. And let's look at one other one, Dr. Paul. And again, we don't know what's happened, but we know something smells fishy. Breaking, and this has been verified, by the way. This isn't just some guy tweeting. Over 500 mail-in ballots for Trump found dumped at Marysville Precinct in Michigan. Update. The clerk has told county Republican officials that the ballots were simply misplaced and accidentally not included in the results. This indicates either complete incompetence and negligent behavior or extreme voter fraud. I would have to second his emotion when it comes to that, because it's just simply not acceptable. Oh, we misplaced those, we couldn't find them.
Yeah, it's
behavior.
we've got a lot of this. We've got a lot of accidentally misplaced ballots and dumped ballots. We're going to find out there's actually Trump ballots that have been found in the trash, and glitches that are sending thousands of votes, Trump votes, to Biden, and mistakes and errors. And how much of this do we have to see before we start to wonder or start to be convinced that this can't all be errors? It doesn't seem. If it is, let's just put it this way, if these are all errors and glitches, we have the most absolute, most error-prone and unreliable voting system probably in the entire world, and we should not be trusting it. So even if there's no fraud, we can't be trusting our elections, and our vote doesn't count. If our vote's going to be tossed out to the side of the road in a trash bin, going to be forgotten, gonna be counted for the opponent we're intentionally voting against, so on and so forth, then our vote really doesn't count. And there's an old saying attributed to Joseph Stalin: it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. And that's so true. And when you've got electronic voting machines that are easily hacked, then it's a selection. We've all known this. All of us who are aware have known for many years that this happens every year. This is just the most blatant I've ever seen. So we've got more. We've got a few more strange things going on. Let's just cover them quick. Get through this. Here we go.
President Donald Trump, and not the only one we found in the trash. So, my name is Brian McCaffrey. I'm a registered Democrat in the city of Philadelphia. Today, I'm at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and I am overseeing the ballot counters. I will let you know the corruption that is going on here. They will not allow us within 30 to 100 feet to supervise the ballots being counted.
So won't let them within distance of being able to actually see, which is right in line with the windows being boarded up. And by the way, according to pretty much all the people that say this whole fraud thing is a conspiracy theory, it's fake, there's no such thing as voter fraud, at least not in this election. They're saying that these are unproven conspiracies, and evidence such as the stuff that Daniel McAdams just showed of actual photo evidence of boarded up windows is being wiped from Twitter, is being fact-checked on Facebook, so that people actually cannot see the evidence, and then they say, give me a photo and I'll believe it. And then you can't actually give someone a photo because it's been wiped from the social media platforms that people are using, which is why independent platforms are so very important in these times of unprecedented censorship. This is a Democrat exposing what he claims is corruption on levels he is blowing his mind, basically.
This is a coup against the President of the United States of America, and I want to call out the Mayor of Philadelphia, James Kenney, the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, who tweeted that there's no way Donald Trump can win President of the United States of America, and also District Attorney of Philadelphia, Larry Krasner. I can't believe what I'm seeing right before my eyes. This has nothing to do with Joe Biden or Donald Trump. This has to do with our democracy, and I will tell you, there is corruption at the highest level in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, so those are the vote watchers, and they've been pushed back so far that they actually have to use binoculars. So there's more evidence that they're not being allowed. And then we don't need to get into this, but yeah, there's been a couple Pennsylvania postal workers that have said, well, not the first. This is the second one. The first one said they were post dating mail that was collected on the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th was being backdated to the date of the election, the 3rd, in order that it would qualify. Project Veritas, not the most reliable source. There's supposedly a whistleblower organization for whistleblowers, but they've been caught on at least one occasion. The scam, I think they bribed someone to pose as a whistleblower. So I'd take that with a grain of salt, but you know, worth looking into. And that's not all. There's more. And that video, by the way, that was also by Ed from The Outer Light. He's got very long video, so I already covered a lot of the stuff in my video here that he covers in there, so that's all we're going to look at there. But here's another one, another of those statistical anomalies that just doesn't add up. So, Zero Hedge, of course. Why does Biden have so many more votes than Democrat senators in swing states? In most elections, the majority of votes are cast down the ticket, meaning a voter supports both parties' presidential nominee and state congressional candidates. In other words, they check R or D on the ballot. They just, straight down the ticket. In fact, according to Pew Research, overwhelming shares of voters who are supporting Trump and Biden say they are also supporting the same party candidate for Senate. So we know in this race, according to polls, this is exactly what's happening. And yet, we have found that the number of votes cast for Joe Biden far exceeds those cast for the state Senate candidates in swing states, while those cast for Trump and GOP senators remain far closer, just like you'd imagine when the majority of people just vote straight down the ticket, red or blue, R or D, or independent. So here we've got, I think this is Michigan, and we've got Joe Biden, 2,787,544. And here's the Democratic congressman, 2,718,000 compared to 87,000. So quite a many thousands apart. In fact, almost 70,000 apart. Whereas the difference between the Donald Trump at 2.637 million and the John James, congressman here, 2.63. Only 7,000 votes of a difference. So where did these extra, let's just say maybe 9,000 would be what we might expect there to be a difference. So where did these other 60,000 come from? In Georgia, there was 808 vote difference between Trump and the GOP senator versus a 95,000 difference between Biden and the Democratic candidate for senator. That's even worse. Amazing. In Georgia, where they are currently finding new Biden votes. And that's how it ends. And now he has surpassed Trump in Georgia in the late stages of the week. Yet, and this is very interesting here, in 2 non-swing states, there was no massive flood of mysterious empty Biden votes, leading the Twitter user US Rebel to suggest it's fraud. And it makes sense. I mean, if this is only happening in swing states, and we know for a fact that people tend to vote straight down the ticket, and people have said in polls for this election that that's what they plan to do, how else can it be explained? Well, we can leave that to the Democrats, the leftists, to explain away how this is not evidence, at least suggesting fraud. Maybe not of fraud, but definitely evidence suggesting it. In Wyoming, the difference on the Democrat side is just 725 votes, while in Montana, the difference is 27,000. And the U.S. Rebel Twitter user says in their tweet, another control state which Dems aren't currently trying to steal, Montana. Trump, 340,000. GOP Senator, 330,000. Only 10,000 difference. Biden, 243. Senator, 270. Difference, 27,000. Still a bit greater than the Republican, but a far cry from the 70 to 90,000 that we're seeing in Georgia and Michigan. Two of the key states that flipped for Biden in the last few percentage of votes, the last few boxes of votes. What's going on here? If it were never Trumpers pairing Biden with their GOP congressional picks, wouldn't one expect fewer votes for Trump than GOP senators? One would certainly think so. We're open to suggestions, and so am I. All right, so we've got one other very interesting thing here, also from Ed at the Outer Light. This one on 3Speak. Suggest you check it out. It's another independent platform like BitChute and so many others. This one on the blockchain. Yeah, anyway, let's just hear him break it down for us.
But I'm going to go into the data that was crunched by the R&R Law Group. This is their YouTube channel. Very good, non-biased YouTube channel if you want to follow interesting things, not just on the election itself. Just a couple of screen caps here from their video, which you can find. A very big channel there on YouTube. They're talking about Gummy Bear's post here in their video. Absentee ballots received, Pennsylvania early voting statistics. So this person, being a lawyer, is really interested in the data and the details. Okay, they're very good at sifting through information and finding patterns of, I would say, corruption or high anomalies. But here they are in regarding these specific data points. So in regarding these absentee ballots, there are early voting statistics, mail ballots returned by party registration. Democrats are heavily in the favor of 1.6 million, where the Republicans were almost at 600,000 or 586,000. And then you have the other absentees, no party affiliation, so on and so forth. So when they put this data into a spreadsheet, these are the percentages they got, which was 65% of the ballots returned went to the Democrats. Okay, so 65% of the voting absentee ballots were from Democrats. 23% were actually from Democrats. We're talking about the absentee ballots here, and 11% from other. So what he states and what Gummy Bear states is that how does Joe Biden sit at 78%? So Biden is getting 70% of all of the absentee ballots, 78%. So in those ballot returns, he's getting 100% from the Democratic absentee ballots being sent in. You might say, fine, that makes sense. But he's also getting, to get 78%, remember the Democrats are at 65%. So in regarding the people sending them in, 65% are actually from Democrats. 65%. That's the percentage. So in order to get his 78%, of those that are being returned to voting for him, he not only has to get 100% of the 65%, he has to get 100% of the other, and he also has to get 10% of the actual Republican returns as well. So he's getting 100%, just like Gummy says here, or Gummy Bear, 100% from the Democratic absentee ballots. He's getting another 100% from the independents, are all voting for Biden, and then 10% of the returned Republican ballots are voting for Biden.
Right.
Something doesn't add up, says Gummy Bear, and you probably know why.
Hope you know why.
Probably know why. Everyone knows why. This is like the 9/11 of voting, at least in my opinion. Okay, so I'll be back.
Okay, so yes, it is like the 9/11 of voting. This is the election fraud of the century. This is ridiculous. We can once again we can let the Democrat deniers, those who say, we should say the establishment deniers that say election fraud is so rare and it doesn't happen in this country. We can let them deal with that math. After all, Joe Biden certainly seems to have no shortage of experience with mathematical anomalies. One might almost say it's a specialty of his.
But you know, in the 2020 census, which is now 2 censuses ago, estimated 200 million people have died, probably by the time I finish this talk. Unnecessarily, now we have over 120 million dead from COVID. That's why I've made it a priority my entire career to work closely with you. From the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago, you know, as well as my tenure as vice president.
1787. In the meantime, keep it real. Keep your eyes open for more statistical anomalies. I'm going to be putting together a shorter video than this one. Just some clips. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do follow me on BitChute. The YouTube is absolutely not reliable. I just uploaded on my BitChute anyway. I just uploaded one of the latest Ron Paul Liberty reports on the election fraud that I touched on here in this show. Much more discussed in the full 31-minute video. As you can see, this is popular stuff in just maybe 2 hours, 120 views. So people are interested in seeing the evidence of this election fraud. People are interested in the corruption being exposed. I'd like to think that people are waking up to the fact that there have not been fair and honest elections in this country in the past 2 decades, and that there has been fraud even long before that. If you're unfamiliar with the history of voter fraud in this country, blackboxvoting.org, excellent information, lots of stuff up there. In fact, there's an entire book that details how election fraud happens. This is the reality of the situation. Two-party illusion. This is what I've been saying all along. 2 wings of the same bird. Vote all you want, the flight plan doesn't change. So no matter how the outcome turns out in the end of this ridiculous mess of whatever you want to call it, definitely a stage show, definitely fraud, corruption going on, but however it ends, the bankers, they've already won. They've won the election. They always win the election. The war machine, the Zionists, every time. So, keep your eyes open. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with more videos. I've got a solid internet connection now, so I'll be uploading videos more frequently now. If you stayed through the whole video, thank you very much. Please share. Please like, share, subscribe. Get the information out there. Follow me on my blog on Hive. Peak Deep. I'll have links in the description. 2 parties, 1 system, same government, same wars, same story, every time, every single time. Nothing ever changes. Government gets bigger, people lose more freedoms, we inch closer to global government, and not in a good, harmonious way, in a destructive, Orwellian way, as is currently taking place. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm out. It's been Jason here. Like, share, subscribe. Like I said, links will be in the description. Until next time, peace.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.